Hello, my name is Richard Goyette, and the topic of this video is my theology in a nutshell. Over the past 10 years or so, my theology has undergone a huge metamorphosis. I re-explored the Christian scriptures with an open mind and a fresh set of eyes. In addition, I've read extensively on subjects of theology, life after death, the nature of reality, quantum physics, near-death experiences, mysticism, out-of-body experiences, and the like. I searched for truth wherever it might be found. I began my search with the premise that truth is truth, and all truth must be God's truth, no matter where one finds it. When I began my search, I regarded myself as an evangelical Christian, neither fundamentalist nor liberal, but somewhere in between. I subscribed to the orthodox tenets of the Christian faith, but had some serious reservations about many doctrines which seemed contradictory or paradoxical in nature, especially doctrines relating to salvation and eternal hell. During this process, my concepts of God and the nature of reality have changed, as well as my beliefs regarding the atonement, the nature and purpose of God's judgments, the nature of the afterlife, and the purpose of our earthly existence. I now believe that we are eternally existing spiritual beings, temporarily residing in seemingly physical bodies. I believe that the Christian and Hebrew scriptures are a historical record of mankind's evolving and improving ideas about the nature of God and how he relates to us. I believe they are inspired by God and full of God's truth. But they're definitely not infallible and inerrant in every respect. I believe that recent discoveries in science, parapsychology, the nature of reality, and life after death are supported by the scriptures, especially the teachings of Jesus and the Apostle Paul. I now take very literally many of the teachings of Paul, which most fundamentalist Christians are unable to accept, believe it or not. I now consider myself to be a progressive Christian, as opposed to a conservative or fundamentalist or evangelical Christian. It doesn't mean that I don't want to share my faith and that I don't want to spread the gospel. But the term evangelical has become associated with a very negative theology that God is going to condemn to eternal torture in hell the vast majority of the human race. And I don't want to be associated with that kind of theology. So I don't consider myself an evangelical for that reason. But am I evangelical? Yes. That's why I'm making these videos. That's why I write books. And that's why I'm out there doing everything I can to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ. But the real gospel, not the fake gospel that you hear so often. I no longer believe that Christian salvation is mostly about who goes to heaven or hell. Instead, I believe it refers to an ages-long process of becoming like Christ. We're all at some stage in that journey. We're all on that path. Some of us are not technically saved yet, but God is still at work in our lives before, during, and after we get saved, right? I believe that. I believe that God is love and loves us all unconditionally. I believe that we are all children of God, made in God's spiritual likeness, and we all share the divine nature. I believe that we all reap what we sow, both Christians and non-Christians alike, the purpose of which is to teach us important life lessons and to help us grow spiritually. I believe the purpose of our existence here on earth and also in the heavenly realms is to enjoy life and at the same time help others do the same and in the process become more like Christ. I believe that heaven and hell are not places but states of being. I believe that the separation we feel from God and others is an illusion. God is always with us and we are all connected with each other and with God way more intimately than most of us realize. I believe that theological correctness has nothing at all to do with our standing with God, and that not having all the answers is part of God's plan for us and serves a very useful purpose. You know, eventually God's going to fill everybody in on the details. We'll all become theologically correct one day. But none of us is theologically correct today completely. I believe that getting saved is not an instantaneous event. It's an ages-long process of becoming consciously aware of God's presence in our lives and acting it out with deeds of kindness and generosity. Loving our neighbors is exactly the same as loving God. Salvation is a path we're all on. It's something we already technically possess, but in our human experience, most of us haven't experienced it. So getting saved, I would equate with experiencing the salvation that God freely gives to all. My purpose in writing this book is to offer help to those of you who have unanswered questions about your faith and are looking for answers that line up solidly not only with the spirit and intent of the Christian scriptures, but also with the findings of science and other non-biblical sources of truth. My book and these videos are for the person who are looking for theological truth that conforms squarely with sound reason and logic. It's for this person who is hungry for spiritual truth that can be believed and lived wholeheartedly without the doubts and reservations that often accompany traditional belief systems. A lot of what you read in my book and hear in these videos will surprise you. I will be sharing some concepts that may be entirely new to you, especially if you have not ventured outside of evangelical Christian circles. There are millions of people out there who largely share my views. Many of these people you will find in progressive churches. Some of them you'll find even in the conservative evangelical churches. A lot of them will never set foot inside of a church for a variety of good and not so good reasons. Some of them will be found among adherents to non-Christian religions. Many of you will be shocked by what you find in the scriptures that you never noticed before. Important truths in scripture are sometimes completely missed because people tend to read into the scriptures what they have heard from the pulpits and in Sunday school classes. When you take off your theologically tinted glasses and seek honest and unbiased ways of looking at and interpreting the Bible, many passages will take on completely different meanings. Some of them will take on meanings that are exactly opposite of what you previously believed them to mean. For example, the word translated eternal in the Bible derives from the Greek word aionios and the Hebrew word olam, which means refers to an age or a specific period of time that has a beginning and an end. It means exactly the opposite of eternal. It's crazy, isn't it? But it's true. The result of my personal quest for truth was better than I could ever have imagined. My faith is now rock solid, and I am more excited than ever before about where I'm headed in this life and the next. If you are honestly seeking for answers to life's toughest questions and aren't afraid of the truth wherever it leads, get ready for the ride of your life. Thanks for listening. Whoops, just a minute. Okay, this time I really mean it. Bye-bye.